Welcome to Playback with another episode of History. For 4 long years, the world was bleeding in the trenches of the Western Front, but behind the roar of all that artillery and the clouds of poison gas, another war was being fought entirely. A secret war, waged not with steel, but with mathematics. And it's a story we're going to unlock together.
You see, this was a conflict fought in the airwaves, a silent revolution, where the most dangerous weapon of all was a secret. In this invisible theater, a few broken characters could sink an entire fleet. They could halt a massive offensive, or, as we'll see, even bring a neutral superpower kicking and screaming into the fight. This is the story of that silent war.
So how did this invisible battlefield even open up? Well, like any good mystery, it starts with a crime scene, an inciting incident that completely changed the nature of communication for the rest of the war. Within hours of war being declared, Great Britain pulled off this surgical strike that wasn't aimed at a ship or a fort. No, the HMS Laconia steamed out and cut Germany's undersea telegraph cables, basically unplugging their secure, direct lines to the rest of the world. And that single act forced the entire German Empire onto wireless radio. Now, radio was this amazing new technology, but it was also a massive liability. Every secret command, every troop movement was now just floating through the air for anyone with an antenna to pick up. All of a sudden, secrecy became a matter of life and death.
Germany's solution was to create a whole case file of codes and ciphers so complex, so mathematically dense, that they were absolutely convinced they were unbreakable. They had to figure out a way to turn their most vital secrets into what looked like completely meaningless noise.
Okay, so before we go any further, we gotta understand a key difference here. A code is basically a dictionary. You replace whole words, so attack might become bluebird. But a cipher, that's a mathematical algorithm that scrambles the individual letters of a message. And Germany, well, they put all their faith in ciphers, believing they could cook up a level of complexity that was just impossible to reverse engineer.
And that leads us right to the central puzzle of our story. How exactly did they do it? Their masterpiece was this terrifyingly complex system known as the ADFGVX cipher. It was pretty much the peak of wartime encryption.
So what's so cool about this slide is how it breaks down this really ingenious two-layer protection. First, you had substitution. Using a grid, a single letter like B would get replaced by its two-letter coordinates, something like AD. But the real genius, the knockout punch, was step 2. Transposition. They'd take these new letter pairs, write them into a table, and then completely shuffle them all around using a secret keyword. This whole process was designed to systematically destroy the fingerprints of human language, turning a clear military order into what just looked like a random, meaningless jumble of letters. But you know how it goes. For every unbreakable lock, there's always someone who's dedicated their life to picking it. So let's move on and see how the investigation began, and let's meet the brilliant detectives who were tasked with hunting for meaning inside that wall of noise.
In Britain, this job fell to a group called Room 40, a unit so secret that the Prime Minister himself was initially kept in the dark about it. Meanwhile, in France, the challenge was taken up by guys like Captain Georges Painvin, a math professor who became a code breaker. Their main weapon was something called frequency analysis. See, they knew that in any language, some letters show up way more often than others, like E in English. Their job was to find the faint echo of these patterns, the ghost of the original language, hiding inside the cipher. And their best clues were cribs, these predictable, repetitive phrases like weather report or ammunition status that gave them a tiny foothold to start climbing.
But sometimes you just get lucky. Early in the war, the German cruiser SMS Magdeburg ran aground in the Baltic Sea. Russian divers who were exploring the wreck found the German Navy's main signal book clutched in the arms of a drowned signalman. They immediately handed it over to their British allies. This book, it was a Rosetta Stone. It gave Room 40 this incredible key, letting them track the German high seas fleet in almost real time.
You know, cracking the ADFGVX cipher wasn't just some intellectual puzzle. It was this grueling, all-consuming battle that really shows you the human cost of this silent war. The French captain Georges Painvin, he literally worked himself to the point of collapse, driven by the knowledge that millions of lives depended on him solving this thing. And, against all odds, he did it.
This brings us to the climax of our whole investigation, the moment where one single decoded message, plucked right out of the airwaves, would change not just the war, but the entire geopolitical landscape of the 20th century. This is the reveal.
It's January 1917, and the codebreakers in Britain's Room 40 intercept a message. It's a top-secret telegram from the German Foreign Secretary, a guy named Arthur Zimmermann, and it's headed for the German ambassador in Mexico. They painstakingly started to apply their keys and all their techniques, slowly, letter by letter, revealing the message inside.
And what they found was absolutely explosive. Germany was proposing a secret military alliance with Mexico. The deal was, if the United States entered the war against Germany, Mexico was supposed to attack the U.S., and in return, Germany promised to help Mexico reclaim its lost territories, Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona. It was the ultimate smoking gun.
The impact was just immediate and absolute. Before this telegram, American public opinion was staunchly neutral, completely determined to stay out of a messy European war. But after the contents of this message went public, that neutrality just evaporated overnight. Outrage swept the nation. The Zimmermann telegram was the single catalyst that pushed the United States to declare war, bringing its massive industrial and military might to help the Allies.
But the story doesn't just end in 1918. The work of these silent codebreakers, it unlocks something way bigger than just military secrets. They kind of unlock the future. So let's take a look at the legacy.
You can draw a straight line from the pen and paper methods of Room 40 to the mechanical nightmare of the Enigma machine in World War II, and that, in turn, led directly to the work of Alan Turing and the incredible minds at Bletchley Park. Their desperate need to process these complex algorithms faster than any human possibly could, well, that led to the birth of the very first electronic computers. The information age was literally born from the science of secrecy.
The Great War proved a fundamental lesson. An army is only as strong as its secrets. The war showed that mathematical and informational supremacy had become just as vital as having more factories or more soldiers. Control of data was now just as important as control of the battlefield itself. And that leaves us with one last thought. The codebreakers of World War I totally transformed conflict, turning the world's information into its most contested battlefield. And today, every single time you type a password or send an encrypted message, you're walking in their shadow. It really makes you wonder, in our modern world of constant data flow, is history's next great battle already being fought all around us in total silence?
Well, that's our story for today. Hope to see you in the next episode.